You know, they say the quietest moments in a marriage are the most dangerous. It's not the screaming matches that tear you apart, it's the silence that fills the space after. The silence that settles in when you stop trying. This is the story of how my marriage ended, not with a bang, but with a slow, deliberate unraveling that started with a single sentence. It was a Tuesday. I remember because the trash was overflowing, and Tuesdays were trash night. I'd had a brutal day at work, the kind that leaves your nerves frayed and your spirit feeling thin. All I wanted was a few minutes of quiet connection with my wife, Sarah. Just to feel like we were on the same team, you know? I came into the kitchen, where she was scrolling on her phone, and I made my move. A gentle hand on her shoulder, a soft suggestion that maybe we could, you know, reconnect later. She didn't even look up from her phone. Her voice was flat, devoid of any emotion, as if she was reading a weather report. I'm not really in the mood. And just so you know, it's not my job to fulfill your every need. The sentence hung in the air between us, sharp and final. It wasn't just a rejection, it was a redefinition of our entire relationship. A transaction. In that moment, something inside me broke. Not with a crack, but with a quiet, definitive snap. A switch flipped. For years, I had operated on a simple, unspoken principle: we are a partnership. I cook for you because I know you're tired. I fill your car with gas because I care about your safety. I listen to your stories about work because your day matters to me. I did these things out of love, expecting nothing in return, or so I thought. But her words illuminated a painful truth. My acts of service were, on some level, a currency. I was depositing kindness into an emotional bank account, assuming I could make a withdrawal later. And she had just declared the account closed. So, I made a decision. A cold, calculated, and utterly terrifying decision. If it wasn't her job to fulfill my needs, then it certainly wasn't my job to fulfill hers. I would stop. Completely. The next morning, I made coffee. Only for myself. The rich, bitter aroma filled the kitchen, and I drank it standing by the sink, watching the steam curl into the air. Sarah came down, yawning, and reached for the coffee pot. It was empty. She looked at it, then at my full mug. "Oh, did you not make any for me?" she asked, a slight frown on her face. I took a slow sip. "I figured it wasn't my job," I said, my voice perfectly calm. The confusion in her eyes was a small, dark victory. And so it began. The great unraveling. I stopped doing her laundry, fishing only my own clothes from the hamper. I stopped picking up her prescriptions from the pharmacy. When she asked if I could grab her favorite yogurt from the store, I simply said, "I'm only getting what's on my list." I stopped initiating conversations. I stopped asking about her day. The house, which had once been a shared space, became a territory divided by silent, invisible lines. For the first week, she was just annoyed. She'd huff when she found an empty milk carton I'd put back in the fridge. She'd make pointed comments about the pile of her mail accumulating on the table. "Is someone feeling a little passive-aggressive?" she quipped one evening. I just looked at her from my book. "No," I said. "I'm just respecting your boundaries. You said it wasn't your job to take care of my needs. I assume the reverse is also true. We're just two independent adults sharing a living space." The annoyance soon curdled into frustration, and then into a cold, simmering anger. Our home became a museum of quiet resentment. We ate dinner in silence, the only sound the clinking of cutlery. We went to bed backs to each other, a canyon of space between us. The weight of the silence was immense, a physical pressure in every room. I was waiting for her to break, to scream, to demand to know what the hell was wrong with me. But she didn't. She just doubled down, mirroring my silence with her own. The turning point came about a month in. Her car, the one I usually took for its oil changes and tire rotations, started making a terrible grinding sound. She came home, her face pale. "The mechanic says the brakes are completely shot. He said it's a miracle I didn't have an accident." She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. You always handle the car stuff. Why didn't you check it? I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. This was no longer about coffee or laundry, this was about her safety. A part of me screamed to comfort her, to tell her I'd take care of it. But the other part, the part that had been so deeply wounded, held firm. I looked her straight in the eye, my voice quiet but unwavering. Sarah, I said. Maintaining your car, that's a need. And it's not my job to fulfill your needs. The color drained from her face. She stared at me, and I watched as the reality of the situation finally, truly crashed down upon her. It wasn't a game. It wasn't a tantrum. It was the logical conclusion of her own statement. She had drawn a line in the sand, and I had simply stepped over to the other side. The silence that followed was the loudest yet. It was the sound of a marriage gasping its last breath. We didn't fight that night. There was nothing left to fight about. We had proven our points, and in doing so, we had destroyed the very foundation we were standing on. A few weeks later, I moved out. The divorce papers were filed without drama, a simple administrative procedure to formalize what had already died in that silent house. So, who won? That's the question, isn't it? I proved my point. I showed her the brutal, logical extreme of a marriage without mutual obligation. But in my quest to be right, I lost my wife. I lost my home. I lost the future we were supposed to have. The victory, if you can even call it that, is as hollow and silent as the house I left behind. She was wrong to say what she said, but I was wrong in my response. Because a marriage isn't a series of jobs and tasks. It's a fragile ecosystem of give and take. And when you stop the flow in one direction, the entire thing withers and dies. I stopped doing anything for her, and in the end, that's exactly what I was left with. Nothing.